Hello and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. I'm Kim and today we are going to talk about green beans. It's early December and I'm pretty much finished outdoors in my outdoor garden. I live in Southwest Ohio. I am in Zone 6A, and in December, it's a little too chilly to do much gardening outside other than a few cool weather crops. And so I have preserved a year's supply of pretty much all the vegetables that my family will need throughout the winter months. But I do have just back there that indoor growing space. So I like to keep a few things going throughout the winter. One, just to keep my sanity because I love gardening. And two, to provide a few more items to go along with the things that I've preserved throughout the year. So typically in my indoor grow space, I focus on lettuce in those winter months so I can have fresh lettuce for salads. This year I have tomatoes as well, and I'm trying to grow cucumbers as well. There'll be bok choy and a few other things, but I've probably put away a year and a half supply, if not more, of green beans. I have green beans coming out my ears, but there is nothing better than a fresh green bean. Fresh green beans from the garden, freshly cooked, will always, in my mind, taste better than anything that's frozen, canned, or anything like that. Picking them at the peak of ripeness and washing them and cooking them immediately after picking them, y'all, that's some good food there. That's good eating. So I have a hydroponic system where I'm trying to grow a few green bean plants in there, and they are germinating, but that's 4 plants. And I want a few more, right? I want to make sure I got enough for a messin, is what I like to call it as I'm talking to people. So, folks, we are going to plant some green beans today and get those going in my indoor grow space. The green beans that I am going to plant today are jade bush beans. So, jade bush beans, and so you can see it. This is the bush bean we're going for today. And I am going to plant them in a container. So here's our wonderful container. Now, this is not quite a square foot, but we're going to think about it like it's a square foot. So that's what we're going to think about this container. And it has holes in the bottom, and I have a container here so I can water from the bottom so I don't have to get the leaves wet. But this is what we're going to grow green beans in. And you're probably saying, that's not enough green beans to have a meal for your family. How are you going to get enough green bean plants in this little bitty space? Well, let me tell you how I'm going to do it. When I am planting in my raised beds, and typically when I'm planting in my containers, I use the square foot garden method. So here's the book. I will provide a link to this book in the description below. And the square foot gardening method is all about thinking about individual 1 foot squares. So a square, a foot by a foot, 12 inches by 12 inches. That's considered that one growing space. And then you move to the next space. And you plant your vegetables very close together so you don't have to worry about weeds and that kind of stuff. They're just close enough to get enough sunlight if we were outside, or inside. We don't have to worry about weeds. That's not a big thing, but still enough room for them to thrive and flourish. And so we will be using the square foot garden method in this container that I just showed you. And I love this book. My neighbor gave me this book, oh my goodness, probably 15 years ago. Has it been that long? When did my neighbor give me this book? A very long time ago. And there are several different versions of this book out there. But when I got this book, I studied and studied and studied. I've read this thing from cover to cover probably 5 or 6 times. I've lent this book out to others who are just starting to get into gardening, and I've always asked for it back. And then I have 2 other versions of this same book, but the methodology is amazing. And I use this still today in my raised beds. I use this still today in all of my containers. So in this book, in the back of this book, there's an index by vegetable. And so we're going to turn in the back of the book here to of the crop by crop guidance. So beans. Beans are in the pea family, if you didn't know. This book tells us everything, right? And it says you can only grow them in the summer or in your indoor growing space. And it says that we are going to plant our seeds 4 inches apart if they're bush beans. And we're going to grow them, and that's what we're doing, bush beans. So let's just talk about bush beans. And it says the seeds can store 3 to 4 years. Remember, I'm always talking about don't go by the expiration on your seed pack. These seeds are good for 3 to 4 years. Not that seeds stay around that long in my house. So we will do that. But still, we're talking about 1 square foot, right? So in a square foot, I should be able to put 9 bean plants. I should be able to put 9. I'm only going to put 8 because I'm not quite a square foot. I'm just under a square foot. So we're going to put 8 bean plants in here. And 8 bean plants, with 8 bean plants, I should be able to harvest about 6 pounds of green beans. Just off of, well, it says 9, but I'm going to do 8. But I should be able to harvest 6 pounds off of 1 square. That's it, 1 square, 6 pounds of beans. Imagine I did a 4-foot by 4-foot square foot garden and I did the whole thing in nothing but green beans. It's like 35 pounds of beans. So I should be able to get a messing a couple of different times doing this method in my indoor grow space. So we're going to give it a try. So that's how we're going to separate them out. In this book, it talks about how to set up trellising. It tells you how to make a good soil mixture so it's light and fluffy. It talks about watering. I mean, this book has it all in there for the beginner gardener who's looking to grow a lot of food in a small space. Now, you can grow vertically as well, which I do, but we're going to talk about the square foot method today with these beans. So my beans, I only need 8 little bitty beans here. And I have the beans sitting in here and it'll tell you in the book, you want to soak your beans at a minimum 2 to 4 hours. A lot of times I will soak them overnight. But for today, they've only been soaking for about 3 hours. And this is a jade bush bean. So I have my beans in here. I use a potting mix. This is actually I think this is Pro Mix Moisture potting mix. And I also have some compost mixed in together with it here. I've already made my wonderful little name tag. I'm going to stick that right off in here. And for the beans, how to plant them, the depth, all of that kind of stuff is right on the bean package. Now, the square foot garden method says you want them 4 inches apart. MI Gardener tells me I want to plant my beans, how deep? A 1/2 inch deep. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to waste this water. We're going to pour this water right on top of the soil. You can't waste anything around here. And the beans, you can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. I have my 8 beans. I've already poured the water off of them. And let me just put them in place. The reason why you soak your beans, one, you can kind of pre-germinate them, if you want to think about it that way. If we were putting these outside, it would give you a jump start on them germinating. So you don't have to wait for them to soak up that moisture from the soil. It will already be there ready to go. So those are my 8 beans. Spread them out just a little bit more because you want them 4 inches apart. And honestly, that's 4 inches on center, if you know what that means. So 4 inches in either directions apart. And now I'm going to just push these beans a 1/2 inch down. Since I'm in my indoor grow space, there is no need to put the granular fertilizer in. If I had it, I would, but I don't have any. But I will be using a liquid fertilizer when I water, so they're still going to get that ongoing fertilizer that I like to use on all of my veggies. They're in there in about a week. These should have germinated, they'll break ground, and they will start flourishing, y'all. And we will have fresh green beans to throw into a soup, to stir fry. Oh goodness, have you ever had stir fry green beans? But these green beans will provide additional fresh veggies for us throughout the winter. I figured I'd go ahead and get these watered in. I'm going to just water from the bottom. Now for this initial watering, I technically could have watered this from the top. I absolutely could have watered this from the top. These are green beans, and it's not like I'm getting leaves wet. So let me go ahead and do a water from the top just a little bit. And we will soak all of this water up from the bottom, and we will make sure we keep our soil nice and moist. And in about a week, y'all, we will have green beans sprouting. I really encourage you to think about the square foot garden method. Depending on what you're growing, you can plant even closer together than 4 inches. It just depends on what you're growing. And this is how I think about how many plants I can put in one location in my garden, whether I'm talking about my raised beds or my containers. So we will do more square foot garden methods in this indoor growing space throughout our winter season. If you enjoyed this quick video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, and I hope you will join me next time. Bye.